You guys love the teriyaki chicken meal prep, so I'm gonna bring it back in a different style, serving it with some chicken skewers. These are absolutely fantastic. They're super easy to make. All of the ingredients are relatively cheap. And I'm also gonna make a delicious stir fry to go alongside. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright, starting off, we're going to need some skewers, and the amount needed depends on how small you cut the chicken, but for myself I'm using 8, and I recommend pouring water to soak them, which will prevent them from burning or setting on fire in the cooking process, and just let these marinate whilst we prepare everything else. Place a pan over medium-high, and whilst still cold, add in 1 teaspoon or 4.5 grams of white sesame seeds, also adding in the same amount of black sesame seeds, with these two being interchangeable. Let's then toast these for 2 minutes or so, just until they start to pop and crackle and gain the slightest of colour. And if you're wondering, this is going to be added to the stir fry later on in the recipe, and if there's any allergy concerns or you don't have them, they can be left out. But once that's done, remove them from the pan, place them into a small bowl and set aside. To make our teriyaki sauce, place a small saucepan over high heat, add in 1.5 tablespoons or 30 milliliters of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon or 20 milliliters of dark soy sauce, with both of these creating a strong salty umami flavour, 2 tablespoons or 20 milliliters of mirin for sweetness and a nice aroma and gloss, 1 tablespoon or 20 milliliters of cooking sake, which helps balance the sweet, salty and acidic flavours, and finally 1.5 teaspoons or 7.5 grams of sugar for sweetness and a nice caramelized flavour. Give this all a good mix through for those flavours to become friends and bring it to a boil in the process. Then once boiling, reduce the heat to low and let it simmer for 5 minutes, which will give it plenty of time for the sugar to melt. And once that's all done and you have this delicious tangy teriyaki sauce, remove it from the heat and pop it out of the way. For the prep, we need 5 spring onions or scallions, and with the white root end, slice these into large strips, roughly around 4 centimeters in size, with these going on the skewers, and with the green stem ends, thinly slice into rounds or on a slight angle if you'd prefer, with this being used as a garnish. For the stir fry, get yourself 2 carrots and 4 parsnips that have been washed with the skin left on, and you can peel these if you wanted to. With the carrots, these can be top and tailed and sliced in half to make them easier to work with, and as for the parsnips, remove the tops and again slice it in half, being careful yours doesn't shoot off like mine did here. With both, slice a strip off the side so that they can sit flush on the board without wobbling, and thinly slice into strips, trying your best to get them as even as possible. This can also be done on a mandolin if you prefer, and with the strips, stack them up and again thinly slice into little matchstick cuts, with the correct terminology being called Julienned cut, leaving us with all of this. Last but not least, here is 6 large boneless and skinless chicken thighs, which I'll leave a note about in the description, and all that needs to be done is cut them into diced pieces, staying consistent with the size for even cooking times, also trimming off any large pieces of fat and or gristle. Let's now remove the skewers from the water, and starting with the chicken, place on 1 piece and follow up with 1 piece of spring onion or scallion, continuing that order to fill the skewer, also going back to what I said at the beginning, depending on the size of your chicken or how much chicken you put on each skewer will determine how many you get out of this, but with that done, you should have something that looks like this. Now to get this cooking, place a large pan over medium-high, add in 1.5 tablespoons or 30 milliliters of peanut oil, and once really hot, place in the skewers, doing so in batches so we don't overcrowd the pan, place on a lid and cook for 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, carefully remove the lid and flip the skewers, which now have a really nice golden sear on them, place the lid back on and repeat this 3 more times, with the total cooking time being 8 minutes, with 4 minutes on each side, then remove and place onto a plate. Next, pour in the teriyaki sauce, making sure not to waste any, bring it to a boil, and mix and cook for 30 seconds, which will deglaze the pan, pulling up all of those flavours. Reduce the heat to low, add all of the skewers back in, and it doesn't matter about overcrowding this time, and mix them through the delicious teriyaki sauce, getting them coated all over, and once that's done, remove and set aside. For the quick stir fry, place a wok or large pan over high heat. Add in 1 tablespoon or 20 milliliters of peanut oil, and once smoking hot, add in the julienne carrots as well as the julienne parsnips, and whilst mixing regularly, stir this for 3 to 4 minutes or until soft and golden. You can also give it a flick of the wrist to have a little practice, but try not to spill it everywhere. Then once that's all done, add in 1 tablespoon or 20 milliliters of soy sauce for a nice salty umami flavour, and 1 tablespoon or 20 milliliters of mirin for even more umami and a little sweetness. Then continue stir frying for 1 minute, getting everything coated in the sauces. Last but not least, add in 1 teaspoon or 5 milliliters of toasted sesame oil for a nice light nutty flavour, also adding in the toasted sesame seeds we did at the beginning, and continue stir frying just until everything is incorporated, roughly for 30 seconds, then remove it from the stovetop. Serve it up by placing down a bed of the stir fry mix, place 3 or 4 skewers over the top, and you can remove the ingredients from the skewers if you prefer. Garnish with the green stem spring onion or scallion for a pop in colour and freshness, then spoon over the leftover teriyaki sauce from the pan. This then leaves us with this absolutely beautiful dish that has so much flavour, which all blends really well together, and I highly recommend trying it as it is also extremely easy to make. Of course, with all of that done, there's only one thing that's then left to do, and that is we can then dig in.